Well, hello, Berg Expo participants. I'm glad you could join the session based on value and value selling. My name's Todd Snelgrove, and I spent 20 plus years in the industry, most of my time with SKF. But let me just kind of give you a quick background. So, over the years, what we started to see as a company is that no matter how much the manufacturer thought they were creating something of value in a product or service and partnering with their distributors to deliver that product and service and value, the rise of the economic buyer happened. So, the technical buyer, even though they're extremely important, and we should always talk to the maintenance person, the reliability person, the production person, at the end of the day, there was a vice president of purchasing that was getting involved, and they were saying things like, "Why am I paying 20% more for that offering? What's it worth to me? Is there somebody else that can do the same thing cheaper, or better, cheaper, or the same cheaper?" So we went on a journey to say, okay, how do we differentiate in the market to really articulate that value and get paid for it? So you see a book on the right here called Value First and Price. I've been with a lot of research, but I'm going to share some best practices from it. And I want to talk about, how do you create value, calculate that value, quantify that value? How do you communicate it in your sales process and your marketing material and the words to use? Maybe when to even use it. And then how do you price for it? What are some of the things we do in the industry that I've seen? I've got global experience, but I've seen a lot of similarities around the world. Maybe some of the things we do with our pricing actually confuse our customers. So let's always talk about value first and then the price as a component of that. So I was a global VP of value, commercial excellence. That's what I do for a living now, help big companies focus on that. So let's go on a quick journey and see what we can share. This slide just gives you a flavor that a lot of big companies I've worked with. I'll show you later all the different things, but not just industrial, but B2B sales with technical products. So this is a image that comes from that book, the Value First book that I mentioned, and Jim Anderson, who is a well-known academic but spent 30 years in the space. We were sitting down and saying, there are so many companies that want to sell value. Their CEO says we create value, whether they really do or not, it's one discussion. But we just got to find a way to get paid for it. So they go on a journey where they maybe do something and they say, we're going to do this. And the question from Jim was based on my experience consulting in the industry and his, what works and what doesn't work, or what are people missing? So I think there's a great visual. You're going to get a copy of this chapter from the book when you get the slides and read this, because to get the success of value selling, I think there's two things to look at. One is the ability to sell, and one is the want to sell. What I find is a lot of companies might choose one or two of these things and miss the other eight. And you need to at least address or discuss all of them. So are you adding value conceptualization during your new product development or service process? I can't tell you the number of products or service I've seen get to the market that failed miserably because nobody challenged what is the value to the customer? Can we quantify that? Because if the value is less than the price difference, they're not going to pay for it. If the great value that you believe is so great and the customer says, that's a nice to have, but I'm not going to pay anything more for it, maybe we should stop creating these things. And then, really sit at the beginning. What would this be worth if I could reduce this or improve that? Therefore, they won't mind paying this. Is it part of your value selling process or process, depending where you are in the world? But, value isn't at the end of the day when the contract's been signed, or right at the end when the customer starts arguing about price. We should start going, oh yeah, by the way, these are all the things we do for you. All the research shows we need to engage the clients earlier before they even send the RFQ, RFP, RFI, ask you for information. You've got to get them to understand that when I'm buying MRO parts, which is what we are in the world here, bearings and etc., it's not a commodity. These things create value. You should measure based on these different methodologies I'm going to mention. Value-based sales tools. That's kind of how I started, built a value quantification tool so that sales could go out and have a good discussion. Here's where you are. Here's where we think you could be. Here's the benchmarks. So here's the reasoning, the technical and the experience, etc. If we do this, this is the payback for you. Here's the return on investment. Here's the cash flow. Here's all these things, because guess what? Your customer needs to go to their boss and say, I need to invest in this. And he might say, this will help us be more efficient or reduce downtime. These are words, but they stop to resonate with some people at some companies, typically the procurement and finance people, because they hear them all the time. Have you done initial value selling training? I mean, everybody that's investing their time to come to this conference is trying to get better at this, but I'm still amazed at how we're still, feature focused, not benefit focused. Benefits aren't quantified, they're not industry specific, and we don't do storytelling. So I'll go through some of that. It needs to be ongoing. It's not a one and done. The beginning of the year in 2021, we did a value launch for 1 month and it's done. You need that ongoing, constant push, support, drive. Any culture change project, which is what this is, needs it to have somebody improving it, being a focal point, helping and supporting. So again, that's why a lot of companies are creating these value management offices, chief value officers, VP of commercial excellence, pulling all this stuff together. How are you measuring and paying your salespeople? For those of you that are publicly traded on the conference here, a 5% price cut in general is either all the profit, if you're an industrial distributor, and I'm talking net profit, or at least half of the manufacturer's profit. So, maybe we should be paying people on profit, not volume. Because a lot of people say, you want to know what, it's easy to cut a price, it's quick. I mean, and they spend more time fighting internally to say, management, we just need this special discount for this customer because that's what they're focused on, versus taking that time and effort to go to the customer and say, maybe we'll guarantee it. Maybe we'll do more. Maybe I'll measure it. Maybe I'll show more value, whatever that is. I don't think we'll have a lot of time today to get into detail, but value buying options. Are you giving your customers choice in how they buy? I do a lot of work on this, do a lot of research, helped a lot of companies to say, Mr. Customer, do you want an outcome-based model, a performance-based model, a risk-reward model? Or, again, the company that's willing to put their money where their mouth is actually changes the business discussion. Your company's business culture. Are you constantly saying, get the order, it's the quarter, that's all that matters? Or are you saying, no, we need to really look at what value do we create? I was lucky that I had a CEO that was very passionate about this as much as I am. It was part of our annual report. There were awards around it. There was people around. I mean, it was part of who we were. And then your customer culture. As you'll see with one of the slides in here, I probably spent a third of my time, maybe half my time at conferences, at key customers, at academic associations, writing papers, trying to get the market to say, you want to know what? You might think MRO bearings are a commodity. They sure as heck aren't. You want to know what? They have the biggest impact in your company's profitability. So maybe we should spend more time, more effort really doing an analysis of where the impact is that we can bring. I've started every presentation for 20 something years with a variation of this slide, internally and externally. Price is what you pay for something. Cost includes price. They're all 5 letters. And value is kind of the upside. So they're all 5-letter words, but they all mean something completely different. Completely different. And what you find is that companies seem to think that if they reduce the price they pay for something, their costs will go down and those savings will become profit. That was 2 assumptions that I just made. And I think as an industry and as a company, you need to be able to challenge a customer and say, hey, we can make you more profitable. I'll talk to you about that in a minute, the evolution of total cost of ownership. But my job is to make you, Mr. Paper Mill, Steel Mill, whatever it is, more profitable. Yeah, we can look at price and we can look at a 3% price savings. We could also look at a cost improvement and we can also look at a value improvement, speed of machine, production, throughput. But quick story, when I do procurement conferences and at different parts of the world, and I have slides and studies on this, procurement will tell me, when I ask a salesperson for a cost reduction, 90% of the responses back to me are price reductions. Whenever you see that word, stop and think, what are they really asking? And if a client says, I need a price reduction, and I'm not trying to sound overconfident or cocky, Mr. Customer, why do you need a price reduction? The market's horrible, our customers are bad, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to get more dollars to the bottom line. Yes. And you need to do that this year. Yes. Okay. What if I can guarantee you that instead of a 5% price reduction, I give you the same amount in dollars and a cost? energy, inventory, parts. I don't know. That you got to figure out how you're going to do that. But give your team the confidence to have that discussion. Great visual. We're all selling a bearing or a shiv or whatever it is. And the customer's got two choices. And I know they're not $10, but 10,000 and 15,000. But in the old way, you would have the one on the right go to the market and say, I'm 50% higher price. And, the customer would say, from a price perspective, why would I pay more? These are both ISO component parts. They look the same. They smell the same. Yes, your head office is in one country, yours is in another country. I don't care where your head office is, to be honest. Maybe that's just me. But I love this procurement gentleman that I do a lot of work with. His name is Rob McGuire. And he goes, the problem of a bunch of procurement people don't understand, and I think your teams, salespeople, engineering, distributor salespeople, is they've confused what ISO means. ISO means that these products conform to something. Does not mean they will perform. So, old sales methodology. I'm the guy on the right, for argument's sake, Mr. Customer. Yes, I'm $5 or 50% more expensive, but my competitor will use more lubricant. Now, these differences could be because of the product structure. Mine's got a better seal or uses less, whatever reason, a technical one, or it could be my knowledge that I bring to it. How much lubricant are you putting into that? Why? Maybe we should reduce that or consolidate that. The one on the left could use more energy, maybe because of the product, probably more importantly because how it was installed. If it was aligned, you get the idea. So going back 20 something years ago, the person on the right could say, mine will do less or do more than the guys on the left or the ladies on the left. And if I'm talking to a technical person, an engineer, they'll know more reliability on the right, easier to install, less inventory. They will subconsciously put a number to that. I can tell you the chief procurement officer that's got an MBA that's running an Excel spreadsheet in some country goes, those words stop resonating with me. You need to put a number to it. I believe the one on the left costs $10 to buy and will have a $77 operating cost, disposal cost. I'll go through that in a minute. Versus the one on the right will use less or do more at 57, which creates an improvement or a profit impact, because we're not just talking cost reductions. A revenue improvement is not a cost reduction. $30. Now, I wish PowerPoint slides would give us every order and the customer would just nod. But I can tell you from experience, the customer is going to say, okay, Todd, that's great. How will you do this? Give me the technical reasoning. Okay. Show me where you've done this before. Okay. You've got some experience. How will you measure this? Here's some case studies where we can actually measure the life of the machine if we need to, but that might become overkill. What happens if you don't hit it? Okay. What happens if I hit it or exceed it? Do I get a bonus? These are all closing business questions. So don't look at those as negative, but you've changed the discussion to say we should not be focused on the $5 price difference. We should be focused on what that difference is compared to what that green number is at the top. And the final point I'll make here is for all of you that work for companies that say, okay, we're the premium provider of in our industry. I can tell you from talking to procurement people for these many decades, they hate the word premium. Premium connotates you're overpaying for something because of a logo. The premium doesn't mean better. It just means marketing, business to consumer. So be careful I know what you say when you say you're the premium. You believe you're saying we're the best. We offer the most value. The customer might not be hearing that. It's a waste of expense. What I've done by building this business case is saying that $5 price premium is an investment. That investment has a return. And guess what? I only need to be 1/6 right. 1/6 of $30 is $5. I need to be 16% right for you to break even. So here's where you could be. Here's where you need to break even. I've shown you all these examples up here. Again, I think it's a slide that anybody could modify. The Priceberg, great visualization. And the customer says, Todd, I can see price. I can measure price. It's right there. It's visible. The problem with you guys, bearing salespeople, I guess, distributors, is you don't tell me every one of those other things underneath the waterline, inventory, downtime, cost of repair, these things. And if you do, what you don't do is you don't put a number to it. And if anybody's been in sales long enough, we used to ask customers, what keeps you up at night? What are your greatest problems? What you find is what they want you to come to you and say is, I think I can reduce your X by Y, your downtime hours by this, your inventory carrying by that, whatever that is, and put a dollar number to it. That's how you're going to get their attention. Whoever's got the smallest price berg wins. So total profit added, a model that I've developed for 25 years. Real quickly, it started with looking at something called total cost of ownership and saying, you want to know what? My price might be higher, but my costs are lower. One of my favorite quotes I use is, I might be the highest priced distributor in the market, but I'm the lowest cost. Which one do you want? Well, that's what I want. Well, I want the lowest cost. Okay, but let's not talk about price. Let's look at all the factors. So I would look at the life cycle of industrial products, and I go applicable for every other industry, for medical and et cetera, where I do other work with. But I would say, when I was talking in conferences and with some of these academics, this is total cost evolved. And one of them finally said, Todd, you got to change the word or the terminology, because customers, they keep hearing TCO. They already think they understand what total cost is. What you're telling me is that you want to make your customers more profitable. Anybody that looks at a balance sheet, profit comes from cost reduction and revenue improvement. Half the stuff we do as an industry is not just cost reduction. You need to reframe it around a different metric. I believe profit is where we should look. Feel free to steal the term all you want. Real quickly, it starts with an OEM that designs the machine. Let's say it's an electric motor, a gearbox, whatever. And they're taking feedback from the marketplace to say, I'm going to build this machine and I'm going to put these parts in it and it should operate this way. For today's discussion, we won't talk about OEMs. But then we have somebody that buys the acquisition phase, where the contract's out or a specific order needs to happen. And you've got procurement, the executives, or purchasing, the people that are writing the order. And real quickly, 10 years ago, I'm at a conference and our CEO says to me, Todd, we've got an extensive tool, process, and systems in place to measure value for our customers. But on my buy side, I don't think we do. Every year, my procurement team talks about all these great savings they're bringing me, but I don't see it getting to my bottom line. My cost to produce versus what I sell isn't going down. So I want you to see if we can align our sales side and our buy side. So I get together with our chief procurement officer, and you can imagine his frustration of listening to a salesperson talk about how we should be choosing suppliers. If you sell one way, you should probably buy the same way if you truly believe it's the best way. And he said, Todd, we already do this. And I said, well, just tell me what you measure, and then I'll leave you alone. And he goes, we measure we look at the options that meet the minimum requirement of what we're trying to buy, whatever that is. Then we look at the unit price. Then we add all or subtract all these costs. What's the minimum order quantity, which means inventory dollars? What are the payment terms? Can I get 60 or 90 days payment versus 30 days? Can I reduce my suppliers? Because that's a big cost savings. What about finance charges? Do I need to worry about currency? Who pays for the shipping? Is there a return policy or obsolescence policy? And I said, hey, Boeing, great stuff, but you're looking at the acquisition phase, which is, I'll show you in the next few slides, is actually the smallest component of the overall operating benefit of a product or service. Just a side note here, I'm actually very good friends with them now. We consult together. We both learn from each other to look more holistically. So somebody builds it, somebody's bought it. Now somebody's going to install, operate, and maintain that machine. And, because we have bearing people on the call here are like individuals, how much energy will that machine use? How much lubricant? How much water? How much ink? How much oil? How long will that last? And I'm going to do an assumption. There's nothing wrong with assumptions. When it breaks, how expensive is it to repair? We all know that if you can predict a failure, it's 80% cheaper, just with parts and time and all that stuff versus a planned repair. Production and quality are in green because they're not cost reductions. If I can increase your throughput, help you, volume, more tons of whatever to sell, that's profit revenue side. If I can help you more product at a higher price because it's moved up in grades of quality because there's less vibration, that's higher price. If I help you get to the market quicker with what you're doing, that's higher revenue. Those aren't cost reductions. I don't have time to go through all this and use them on examples. I've run a lot of exercises with people on this. And then disposal costs. Most companies don't look at disposal. They throw away the machine. Who cares? It's done. But we all know there's refurbishment options in the market for machines, for components. Some things are very expensive to get rid of. Used oil or grease. Maybe a machine that's well taken care of. Maybe I bought a better machine or put in better parts, but I can reuse it 3 times. Maybe I could resell that machine to somebody else. Maybe I could use that as my backup, not keeping a new backup. I don't know, but disposal costs can be negative, but they can also be positives. There could be a residual value. Walk the life of your product or service through this. You'll get an idea of where your areas of impact are. These should relate to most bearing companies and distributors because this is what you do in the marketplace. So we've got the 4 stages. The question is, where are the big numbers? And again, green's not a cost reduction, but a profit improvement. I can also quantify risk. I can also quantify buying from Asia for, just total cost to land something is much higher than people believe. But a great piece of research, I've got a whole slide deck on different research, but this is the simplest one to look at. It's from Accenture, and it says, let's look at different product categories and look at the initial purchase price of the asset versus its operating costs, installation, operating, and maintenance and disposal. So not that many people on the phone here are in the commercial aircraft space. So think Boeing or Airbus. Class 8 trucks or big 18-wheelers. There we are. Number 3, industrial equipment, fan, gearboxes, motors, pumps. And then light duty pickup trucks for work. If you were to buy any one of those assets, the whole machine, it would represent only 8% of its total impact to your bottom line. So for an airplane, fuel and maintenance and labor are huge, and appreciation. Let's look at industrial equipment. So this is a question I would ask. Let's just say that I'm either a manufacturer of a gearbox or a motor, or I'm a distributor selling them to a paper mill or a customer somewhere. And, I've looked at the motors. They all meet my minimum requirements. And I remember doing this on the buy side when I was with this chief procurement officer. He said, which one should we choose? I said, I like that one. He goes, yeah, but Todd, it's 10% more expensive. It's a lot. We're buying a lot of them. And I said, yeah, but it runs 2% cheaper. And he looks at me and he goes, Todd, I know you're Canadian, but what math did they teach you? Why would I pay 10% more to save 2% less? And I said, you need the denominator of the calculation. If I pay 10% more for the asset, the motor, the gearbox, the pump, or the component, that would take that 12% and add 10%, so it would add 1.2. Okay, whoa. So I've increased the total lifetime cost by 1.2. But a 2% reduction of a much bigger number, 88, is 1.76. You want a 1.76 reduction versus a 1.2 price increase. Turns out that's about a 40% improvement. So again, could you make that machine last whatever days longer? Can you reduce its operating cost, its repair cost, its downtime? The data exists. We just got to explain it better, reframe it better in the marketplace. I think one thing that everybody on this conference probably deals with is low price players. People call them low cost players. Their cost might be lower. I don't care. They lead with a lower price to the market. And we kind of talk about them indirectly, that there's risk buying that, non-well-known manufacturer, that distributor that you've never heard of or is new, whatever it is. What I find is that the best way to explain risk is by storytelling. Trying to quantify risk, and I can do that, and that's another story, but in your sales presentation, some people have heard of the Challenger, but I mean, people might remember the old IBM. Nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. I don't know IBM. I don't know computers. They're scary. They're big. I'm not going to take risk. But, this is interesting. Most people hate pain more than they hate gain. Okay, so I won't go through the whole research here, but what the stories are telling us is that, a lot of customers are saying every supplier, distributor and manufacturer talks about, less pain. It doesn't resonate anymore. One of my favorite quotes from a professor is, If every supplier delivered all these cost savings they promised, I'd have no cost at all. So show gain and pain at the same time. I won't go through the other examples. Great example, it's an American cell phone company, Verizon, the relationship with T-Mobile, but they would talk about their network reliability being 99.9%. I don't know what that means. When you try to make a call and you can't talk to the person, you're trying to close that order and you have to call them back, then you miss them, and then you take 3 more, 4. Now I know what 0.1% reliability, network reliability is. So they've converted their benefit, network reliability, into something I can understand and it's tangible. So pricing and procurement. How much? Great stuff you got there, whoever, but how much? Your customer is making a buying decision between, do I have the money to pay for what you're selling me? And all the research shows, Todd, I don't have the money in the pocket. I can't buy your whatever you're selling. But you want to know what? If I build you a business case that says, if you invest in this, it's going to be this savings, and this savings, and you believe it, or the risk reward is very high, I will find the money. I will go to the bank and borrow the money if I have to. And that comes from a lot of people saying, you want to know what? The best business case is going to win. And then there's something called willingness to pay that says, you want to know what? I've got 50 things I'm working on right now. Yeah, one of these days I'd love to upgrade that third line somewhere, but it's not a priority. Again, because they've made an assumption there's a bigger return somewhere else. And I think anybody that's been in sales has had, targets changed and money allocated changed because someone's come in and said, I've got a better business case. Quantify the value you could bring as part of the sales process. Don't only measure what you've done after the fact. Yes, you might need that for the contract, but if you buy this, I think it's worth this. It will help you sell more quicker. Love this lady conference years ago, Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, and I will read it because it's so powerful. Suppliers don't come to us with a business case. It's what we want. Sell your value using our numbers. My favorite line, if you can't quantify your value, don't be surprised at the failure of procurement to do so. It's not their job to figure out why you're worth 10% more. You better bring them that business case. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be reasonable to start a discussion. This is stolen from a gentleman named Rob McGuire, a procurement gentleman. And I think it's a great, important thing to think about is when you sell value in the buying process. His point is you guys, again, manufacturers, distributors, you wait too late. Let's walk through somebody's buying process. I'm going to buy a car. Okay, just to keep it simple, everyone's gone through this. A need's been identified. I need a car. The other one broke. The kids got older, whatever. I need a car. I will probably sit at home and make my specifications. Todd decides he wants a gas car. He wants a 4-door car. I'm not saying those specifications are right. I'm saying based on my existing knowledge, feelings, and opinions and experience, I'm going to make some assumptions. Then I'll say, who supplies that in the market? Well, Tesla is a car company, but I said I wanted gas powered, so they're out. And I might decide that, potential supplier, I don't like that company for whatever reason. So I'm going to reduce it to 2 or 3 suppliers. Then I'm going to send out the request for information, quote proposal, why yours versus yours. The suppliers do a bunch of work, send me quotes, proposals. These 2 I really like. I'm going to play them off each other, see what I can do. I'm going to probably buy a car from one of the 2 people that are left. And in our personal lives, we don't measure in general how good the car worked. But this is how somebody buys MRO. I know I need it. I know I need a lot of it. I know that I like so-and-so and that distributor, but that guy I don't for whatever reason, et cetera, et cetera. His point is it's way too late, Todd, to come in once we get to the RFP stage to say, no, we should be talking about total profit added. We should talk about performance agreements. We should talk about risk reward. The customer's already made their buying decision so far. We won't go through it, but there's a lot of statistics on the left that show you, the customers only spent 17% of the buying time listening to you, talking to you. The other 83% of the buying process is online, talking to other people in other industries, talking to internal people, doing research, whatever it is. So in your 17%, how are you going to get them to open up their mind and say, wow, I have to rethink how I buy my bearings or my MRO? I won't go through this. It's in the slide deck. It's my closing slide that I show. People that buy in best value, best total profit added are more profitable. And I think the biggest statistic is the top left. big industrial conference that they had me do for procurement. Companies that bought on best total profit added, looked at those 4 stages and measured everything, were 35% more profitable than people that did 3 bids in the buy. Again, I don't have the time to go through all these, but a lot of references for procurement associations that I've done work with. They say that's the way we need to buy. Coming to a close here, I mean, a lot of academic people on the buy side and the sell side. I mean, Kellogg and London Business School about marketing and pricing, but IMD, University of Tennessee, have been procurement schools. You'll see government procurement in the second column there around the world. And government's changing, saying we've got to choose a better of how we buy. And what's the prize for doing this? Again, people that do this are more profitable versus taking a volume strategy or a market share strategy. People that are structured about getting paid for profit are, I think it's 36% more profitable. They close business faster at less discount, and they keep their customers happier. So real quickly, I focus around helping companies figure out what value is, identifying it, calculating it, building tools or choosing tools, templates, references, the marketing, the material, the ROI sheets, the training, the white papers, the conferences, customer conferences, industry conferences. How do you deal with procurement? Who are they? How do they think? What are the terms they use? And then we didn't get into today, but pricing models, outcome, risk, reward, subscription, bundles, selection choice, just to give you a flavor. So with that, I thank you for your time. You're in a great industry. You create a lot of value for your clients. I think it's our job to continually show them that, price is such a small component. We help them become more efficient, take out waste, and help them make them more profitable. But it's our job to articulate that in a way they can understand it, so they're able and willing to pay you for it. So my contact details at the bottom. The expo will let you guys have the slides. They'll be in PDF in that chapter. Reach out to me, LinkedIn, follow me, whatever. And I wish you luck on your value journey. All the best.